All right, everybody. A very good morning. Next episode of Web's Webinar Wednesday, and I'm very excited for this one. We're almost reaching our 10th episode, so that's our first anniversary of Web's Webinar Wednesday. But before we're there, we have a great session coming up today, together with my friend and colleague Steve Vaughan from HubSpot, based in Ireland, as he mentioned in the chat. And there is a thing going on. There's a very, very cold truth. Only, listen carefully, 6% of buyers trust and respect salespeople. That feels a little bit bad because trust is the foundation of a good relationship. And you know why? Buyers, they need someone who understands their pain, who walked the path before and guide them on their buyer journey. That can be a bumpy journey. To be the trusted advisor, you have to sell with empathy, especially in these days of COVID-19. So let this moment be the change in your commercial process that already should have been happened. And today we talk about that with Steve Vaughan. But before we go over to Steve, I have some rules I want to discuss with you. Because if you are the first time here, it's new for you. But we do have a new thing coming up today for all the other participants who are here for various times. You're all muted, as you know. So if you have any questions along the webinar, feel free to use the chat pane anytime. I saw in the introduction minutes that you could find it already, so that's great. But we have something coming up very new, and that's a breakout session. So at 2 moments of this presentation, Steve will put you in a breakout session. You will be guided by one of my colleagues in that session, and we will talk in a smaller group some of the topics Steve is addressing. And after the breakout session, we will come back together in the main room and we can discuss those insights all together. The first time, it might slightly take a little bit time to get it up technically, but no worries. It's pretty straightforward. So the second time we will be good to go anyway. So saying that, my name is Thijs. If you don't know me, I'm the host of the Web's Webinar Wednesday. I'm working at Webs in an account executive role. And I'm happy that you all guys joined us today for a good discussion on selling with empathy, and make sure that more and more people will go to trust the sales professionals. Steve, over to you.
Great. Well, lovely to be with you all during these strange times. If you came to the last webinar I did, then I want to say thank you that you want to hear me again. My wife doesn't want to hear me twice. So if you want to hear me twice, then that's amazing. I appreciate that. I was also given this jersey by Webs not so long ago, and I didn't know if I should show it or not. It has a nice thing of Webs on the back and one, and I didn't know if that was going to start the way. These guys are based in Eindhoven. So anyway, I don't know what you support if you're from Holland, but I did enjoy seeing Ajax the other time. So lovely to be with you. My name is Steve. I work for HubSpot. I'm based in Ireland, and I work in sales, particularly working with the partners like I have to leave this meeting. Ronald, I'm sorry. I already offended people. I knew it. Okay, so let's think about selling with empathy through COVID-19. And forget COVID-19, just selling with empathy. That's an important point, regardless. So we're going to look at 2 things today. We're going to look at the psychology of selling in uncertain times, and we're going to look at a framework for selling through COVID-19. They're the 2 agenda items. So let's look at the first one, psychology of selling in uncertain times. I want to show you 2 different sort of ways of thinking about both the business and the personal side of selling. And it's really important that we think of both, because ultimately when we sell to people, we're selling to people. So it's not just any stranger. We are selling to as in any random company, we're selling to people. So let's look at it from a company side, and then let's look at it from a personal side. From the company side, we need to think about crisis management in terms of before, the warning, the crisis point, the recovery, and the post-crisis. 5 stages. So we're obviously now probably in stage 3 or 4. But before the crisis, at this stage, there are very few signs of the crisis. That was for most of us. In January, who was taking it very seriously? Not many. Warning, there are now some clear indications that an event may happen and cause harm to the business. Maybe February, March, everyone started to go, whoa, crisis point, March, April, May, we're in the storm. We're in it right now, crisis point. The event related to the crisis starts showing harmful effects on the business. I don't know what that has been for you, but nearly all businesses have had some effect. Are we sharing the presentation? I think I'm sharing the presentation. If you can't see it, I think you just need to change your slide. But have a look at that. If someone else can just confirm that I'm sharing the presentation, you can see it. That'd be nice. Oh, afterwards, yes, I'll share the presentation afterwards. Sorry. And then recovery. So this is probably where we're starting to go. The serious stage of crisis has passed, and the business is able to focus on a normal return to normal operation. So we're in 3 and 4. And then post-crisis, we now assess the damage caused by the event. We start repairing what was damaged, and we now have a contingency plan for future similar situations. We're not naive anymore. So that's the situation a business goes through. We're in stage 3. Hopefully, we're moving into stage 4. We're sort of in the eye of the storm. The storm has come, it's upon us, but hopefully in the next season now, it's going to be going May, June, July, as restrictions in different countries change and businesses can start to operate more normally. We're in recovery stage. But then everyone's a person. Everyone, you can't separate a person, just into this is what I'm like in my business life, and this is we're all just people. And so this Kubler-Ross grief cycle was something that I think was put together in the 60s when studies were done on how cancer patients responded to the news that they'd got cancer. In the 60s, you hit the horrible news. What happens? And there's a grief cycle. So first of all, denial. Maybe that was where businesses were, where you were January, February. Then there's anger that so this is avoidance, confusion, elation, shock, fear. Then the frustration, irritation, anxiety, just anger and just frustration. You can't fix it. You can't solve it. You can't change it. Then depression, it becomes overwhelming and helplessness and hostility. And you just want to go flight. And maybe that's where some of you guys are, in anger and depression. And we need to be honest. We need to be real. We're humans, and we won't be able to conduct our businesses well if we're not being real to where we're at. But then we start to come out of this into bargaining. So we're struggling to find meaning. We're reaching out to others. We're telling our story of how it's affecting us. That's all important part of grief. This is how COVID affected me and my business. And then acceptance. Now we're finding a new place on which to live and operate. A few things. You cannot fast forward this. You can't say, right, I'm in acceptance. That's probably denial, right? So you have to be real with yourself. The other thing is you might come and go a bit. I thought I was here and now I'm here, and that's okay. That's life. We're people. But maybe from a business point of view, or if you're in management, or if you are trying to sell, or you have to think about what did the different people need at the different stages. So for the denial and anger, you need information and communication. This is what's happening, and we're here, and we just want to communicate. This is what we know. This is what we don't know. Just information and communication and clarity. At the depression, you just need emotional support. I'm with you. We're with you. We're going to get through this. And then as we go into bargaining and acceptance, now we need guidance and direction. Now, that is very important when it comes to selling. People sell to people, people buy from people. If you have someone in anger and you're trying to offer guidance, you're giving them the wrong thing. So you need to be understanding of where people are at. And that's a really, really important thing. So let's then look at how this applies to industries in general. You kind of then map that onto three, right? You have survive, adapt, and grow, depending on what industry you're in and how it's been effective. So, examples of the survive is travel, events, anything with a building, bricks and mortar, you have to turn up, Most countries have had restrictions where you can't turn up, retail, restaurants. So this business relies on socialization and physical gatherings. These are the businesses that we feel for the most. They've been most effective. And we're fighting for them to stay alive. We're trying to do everything we can. Governments are trying to do everything they can to keep these businesses afloat. If you are trying to sell to these businesses, just tread lightly, because they are in survival mode and they don't want to be sold to. And you're going to do damage, personally and business-wise and everything, and even to your brand, if you go in there and start trying to sell. Just tread lightly. Then you have adapt businesses. So technology and software like HubSpot, consulting, professional services, anyone with outside channel sales, they've got these outside sales reps that have become inside sales reps. Most businesses fall here, and operations have been impacted but not decimated. They can still survive, but they've had to change expectations. And they will need to make investments to strengthen their ongoing presence and pipeline generation. So they need to really focus on their website even more now, more than ever, because trade shows, events, other ways of generating leads, networking, all that is gone. So it really needs to become website. So we need to focus on risk mitigation, that if the businesses don't act, then there's some big risks. So how can we stop those risks? How can we make the changes now to avoid any major problems? And then we have grow businesses that actually have been helped by COVID. E-commerce, e-medicine, e-learning, on-demand gaming and fitness, logistics, IT services. I remember when everything was going into lockdown all over Europe, boom, 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 all the countries. I had like 3 or 4 people buy HubSpot. One was a kind of equivalent to Zoom in the local market, They were like, boom, everything was taken off. Another was a remote working options, So some businesses have gone through the roof. And based on this, COVID is actually, they solve what COVID challenges. And so these are rapidly growing, and they need the infrastructure to maximize the growth. It's fine to have a little peak, but can you scale? And so it's time to value. How quickly can we get the structures and the processes in place to see value and move forward? So when you are dealing with your different businesses, your customers, your prospects in sales or in any, where are they personally on the grief cycle? And where are they on the kind of business? Are they a survive business, adapt business, a grow business? Just to show you what this looks like, right? We got given this in HubSpot early on: highly impacted industries, less impacted industries. And then we got given like questions to ask and just some basic ways to have a conversation with the different businesses that was respectful and understanding. So again, in your mind, have you thought through these customers are in survive, these are in adapt, and these are elsewhere? It's very important that you do that. Now, we've thought about the crisis, the stages. We've thought about the person. We've now thought about the business. So what about sales? How do you actually sell? What's going to be the key way to get the selling happening? Current state, what they're doing today. Dream state, what they want to be doing. Now, this is called loss aversion, is the key thing. So, the normal sales approach is you balance the focus of opportunity. If we take action, we can do this. Here's a goal. Let's achieve the goal. Opportunity, action. Or what's the loss if you don't act? Like, that's a normal sales cycle. Potential if we act, loss if we don't act. Gain frame, loss frame, Sandler sales training, if you've ever done it. The new reality, though, is loss by inaction. Like, if people don't act now, the consequences are much greater because it's such a dramatic situation. So it's not just what the potential is. Yeah, there might be. It's more about, look, this is what you're going to lose. Now, loss aversion in sales. I've been doing sales many years now. Loss aversion is a far more powerful way to motivate people to take action than the gain perspective, the opportunity. So a simple example, if you in your business were told you're going to get 5,000 euros a year increase on your pay packet. You're like, cool. I got a rise on my pay packet. If you're told you're going to lose 5,000, you're like mad. You're angry. You're frustrated. You got questioned. Like if you get given 5,000 euros on top of your pay packet, you're like, cool, whoa, hey, let's go out and have dinner. If you lose it, it hits you harder. In other words, the gain and the loss has a different effect on you emotionally and matters to you in a different way. It's not that the gain isn't good, it's just the loss is more severe. It's like I've got a nice cool beer in my hand here and I've got a red hot iron. Which hand moves quicker? Ah! And so loss aversion, the cost of inaction, the consequences of not doing anything, the dangers of just being stagnating, that is more of a motivator. And so that has never been more important, that we need to get our prospects thinking, what happens if you don't act? What happens if what are the negative consequences that could happen? Or what loss could be averted if we do act? And so that's going to be a really great example with the beer. Yeah, beer is always good for examples, isn't it? But it really is. It helps you. This is a gain. This is a pain. The pain moves you quicker than the gain. That's Sandler sales training. Both are important. So we've thought about the crisis. We've thought about the person. We've thought about the business. We've now thought about the key motivation in sales, always, but particularly now, loss aversion. So how do we actually manage a sales process? What does it mean to be empathetic or empathic? So firstly, put yourself in their position. So working from home, I've got 2 kids in there on 2 iPads with my wife. You know, the Wi-Fi goes slow sometimes and I'm like, oh no, I'm in the middle of a call and we got the staff, have you had to let people go or furlough? The cash flow challenges, and maintaining a safe living environment, the bills, like just share the experience, just like I did with my kids there. Then you have empathy versus sympathy. And there's a very subtle but important difference. And I want you to avoid going down with the worst case doomsday catastrophic talk. I want to give you an example of the difference between empathy and sympathy. Here's an example for you, okay? A man is walking on a bridge over a river, like a really forceful river, and a man is walking over the bridge, and he sees a woman drowning. The woman's drowning in the river. The empathetic man finds a float, throws it to her, and calls 911. Totally empathic, wants to solve feelings of her pain, but doesn't jump in, helps her solve it. The sympathetic man sees her pain, feels her pain, and jumps in. And they both go down. That is the difference between empathy and sympathy. They both want to help. They both have feelings. They're both trying to engage with where the person is at, but one goes down with them and doesn't help, and the other offers a perspective with which to help. You don't have to assume the exact position. You don't have to become them. You just have to understand their situation and then offer a solution out. And so that is called being a trusted advisor. If you're just sympathetic, it ends up quite negative. Oh, yeah, it's all so tough. There's nothing we can do. Yeah, I'm with you. It's all hard. No one's going to buy. But empathy goes, it is tough. It is challenging. And we really need to think about ways out of this. And I'm thinking of that myself. I'm finding it challenging, but this is what and you start becoming a trusted advisor. You're the adult. You're not the kid. The kid is sympathetic, right? Kids are very sympathetic. Oh, I'm sorry that you're so hurt. But they're not empathic. They can't sort of add that emotion with a perspective of a parent. You need to be the parent in selling, the trusted advisor, to offer support, guidance, and direction, as well as understanding. And so to do that, we're going to use a technique called layer. Very important when you're selling: empathy, not sympathy. Give the trusted advisors experience, guidance, and support whilst understanding. Don't just jump in and say it's really, really terrible and it goes nowhere. I hope that's a helpful analogy, and I hope you'll think through that. So if you're in sales, you may have come across this before. How do we address problems? How do we handle objections? I've got no money. I've got no time. COVID has caused all these stresses. I haven't got, whatever. Loads of challenges right now. Layer is a fantastic way to address the objections with empathy. And we have to slow right down to uncover the information so we can sell more effectively. Very simple. Listen. Let your customer or prospects have the floor and don't make assumptions. Number one mistake salespeople make is they assume they know what the customer's going through. And they're not really being empathic. They're not understanding the situation. So shut your mouth, hit the mute button, ask some questions, and open your ears. Let the prospect have the floor. Once they've said some of their challenges and problems, don't come out with, here's the reasons why they're not problems. Come out with acknowledgement. So what I'm hearing is this. That does sound challenging. How's that making you feel? What are your thoughts on that? I'm acknowledging that this is a problem, and I'm trying to get them to reflect back. I'm not saying, here's a problem and here's my solution. I'm saying, here's the problem. Have I understood the problem? That sounds like a tough problem. So L to A. Then to E, ask open-ended questions. How long has that been going on? How's that making you feel? What are the options on the table for you? Is everyone else in the business in a similar situation? Just ask just explore what this problem is as you're listening and acknowledging. And then, my friends, we respond. But most people in the world, by the way, if you're married, you do this with your spouse, don't you? Your spouse comes with a problem. Oh, here's my problem. And you say, here's my answer. Oh, no. Terrible, terrible husband. Terrible husband. You need to go to marriage counseling. Here's my problem. I'm sorry, honey. Tell me more about that. It sounds like this is a challenge. I can understand why this is a challenge. And eventually you might say, have we thought about doing this or this? But you go on the journey with them. Okay? So listen, acknowledge, explore, and respond. That's how you handle objections. So listen, I've taught you 4 things today. I've taught you how to handle the person. I've taught you how to handle the business. I've taught you how to think about loss aversion as the key motivator for sales. And I've taught you how to use the layer principle to handle all objections. And yes, marriage is great sales training. If you're newly married, you're going to get better at sales in the first year of your marriage, or you're going to be divorced. So one of the two. Let's hope the first. So that's what I've taught you. Now, what I want you to do with this is I want you to go in a room, breakout rooms. There's going to be 6 breakout rooms, so 10 people per room. And I want you to answer the questions in the chat pane and then start to talk about them. 5 minutes, not very long. I just want you to reflect. So what is the most helpful from the 4 things considered so far? Kubler-Ross, loss aversion, survive, adapt, grow, or the layer. What's most helpful and why? Put that in the chat pane. Where are most of your customers in the survive, adapt, grow framework? Just like, depending on your industry, your sector, like most of our customers are here. And what does it mean for you to sell with empathy, not sympathy, that difference there, okay? So